Just listen to who Eric Metaxas is, the types of things that he says here.
Talk for a minute about what Juneteenth is meant to signify.
Well, what they say on paper it's meant to signify is this was actually true Black independence, because Black people are not supposed to be celebrating the 4th of July, because when obviously the 4th of July, Black Americans didn't truly get their freedom in this country.
Juneteenth is supposed to be like the day that it was revealed to the Black community in the South that they were officially free. They had to send federal troops to the South to inform, the slaveholders that they no longer owned slaves. And you know what? Do you think those slaveholders are just like, well, I guess we're out of luck. Goodbye, slaves. We're financially ruined now. Oh, no, baby. Those people got compensated for the human ownership, okay? The federal government purchased slaves back from owners, really. They purchased them from them. So white owners got reparations, is the point. Slave owners got reparations. Where were the reparations for the slaves? That's neither here nor there. Keep listening.
And so it's taking a very literal look at the Revolutionary War, taking a very literal look and saying, well, when do we think actually things were right? And this, by the way, this could be never ending, right? You could say that next what will be up is they're going to call it Gay Independence Day, which it should be coming because they've got a whole month now. So then they're going to say, well, we didn't
I think they should call it Independence Gay, but that's just me.
truly have our independence until we had the right to marry with the Supreme Court decision.
Right.
So our day is going to be different. I mean, it's never ending when you start looking at it through that lens.
Dude, I have no idea what she's saying. It's never end. You mean people's rights are never ending? The gall. Imagine people having unlimited rights that don't interfere with anyone else. Jeez.
Celebration, let's face it, and this is why it's evil. It's the celebration of victimism, of victimhood. It's the constant drumbeat, the 1619 Project, that will never, ever let go of these things, as though we have to somehow wallow in the fact that we were abused or victimized. We can never celebrate in a beautiful way. It always has to have this tinge of bitterness to it.
Let me tell you why this video is so interesting to me. This is Eric Metaxas. He wrote a book called Letter to the American Church. All right. Now, I just so happened to read this entire book. Yes, I read the whole thing cover to cover, so your ass didn't have to. You're welcome. I will take my thank you in the form of a fruit basket. And I took notes on this ridiculous book that he wrote, chapter by chapter, okay? First of all, one of the things that I found particularly important about the book that he wrote was that he kept glorifying this guy named Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer, oh, he's such an amazing guy, Bonhoeffer. So I start looking into Bonhoeffer. Now, let me tell you something, a little bit about World War II. In Germany, there were two main churches, main Christian churches at the time. There were Protestant, also known as evangelical Germans, and they were to the north. They made up about 40 million people. To the south was German Catholics or Roman Catholics, and they were about 20 million people. The reason I say Roman or German Catholics is because the whole region used to be the Holy Roman Empire. Germany split off from the Holy Roman Empire and formed out its own thing. Anyway, so there were two main churches, the German Evangelical Church and the German Catholic Church. And then there were a few free churches, what they were called, like probably a total participation or total membership of free churches of about 100,000. We're talking Methodists or Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever. Now, Bonhoeffer, as he mentions him, he was a guy that was involved in the destruction of the system that Hitler had set up. He didn't believe in what Hitler was doing. And he was not the leader of, but a high-ranking member of something called the Confessing Church. The Confessing Church was a movement of German evangelical churchgoers who were opposed to what Hitler was doing and wanted to believed that it was like against God, wanted to turn Germany into something that was like God-fearing again or whatever. The German evangelical church was largely to the north, the Roman Catholic Church largely to the south. So they had to temper their expectations and results based on those statistics. Total of 60 million Christians in the country, give or take. So this whole book by Eric Metaxas, who we're listening to here, talking to Candace Owens.
And this is why it's evil. It's a celebration of victimism, of victimhood.
Right here, this guy on the left, Eric Metaxas, in his book, Letter to the American Church, argued that Bonhoeffer, this Bonhoeffer guy, led the German evangelical church to fight against the Nazis. He led the church in their battle against them, and that Hitler and the Nazi movement was naturally atheistic, hated the church, took advantage of anybody who was religious, and blah, 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 you know, all that stuff. It's simply false. All of it, literally. Everything from beginning to end that this guy said about Bonhoeffer is false. Let me tell you the real story about Bonhoeffer. I did an obscene amount of research into this guy out of curiosity. Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge a religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video. Eric Metaxas wrote a book called Bonhoeffer, and I have it. I bought it. Okay, here are the books that I've purchased for work. We've got The Coming of the Third Reich by Richard J. Evans. Phenomenally good book. You should read that if you haven't. It's like 1,000 pages long. Part 1 of 3. So good. Then we've got Letter to the American Church, complete trash. Then we got Bonhoeffer, also complete trash, by Eric Metaxas. And then we've got Cruel Logic, this ridiculous thriller novel about wokeism. It's just so painfully stupid. Anyway, we're here to talk about Bonhoeffer. Let me just, read the first few pages here so you guys have an idea of what we're dealing with. The endnotes go to basically nothing. They're completely unrelated to what he's saying here. The story of Bonhoeffer, the actual story, was nothing. It was like nothing important. He was a nobody. The guy was unimportant to history. The Confessing Church was an oppositional church to Hitler, to the Nazi movement. It was a really, really tiny movement. Now, granted, you had to be a Nazi if you wanted to live in Germany. It was an authoritarian regime set up in such a way that if you didn't capitulate to the Nazi cause, you'd pay the price for it, basically. Jews for Hitler, for example, existed until 1935, until it was disbanded. I mean, if you weren't what Hitler wanted you to be, you were gone. So who is Bonhoeffer? He was somebody who was the leader of the Confessing Church for a while. I believe he's like second in command. Maybe he was first in command of the Confessing Church. It was a church that was opposed to Hitler's goals and ideals about the world. And it was made up of, as far as I can tell, about 30,000 people out of 60 million churchgoers total. So we're talking 0.05% of the church. That's who we're talking about. That level of support. He was the leader of the Confessing Church for a while. He was a nobody. Unimportant. So unimportant, in fact, that Hitler didn't even bother with him. He did die at Hitler's hands eventually. Do you know why? Because he was involved in the underground. He was fighting Hitler indirectly. He was trying to free some number of Jews, I forget. So he knew a guy that was involved in signing manifests of people that got on trains and where those trains were going and so on and so forth. Well, he got this guy who was responsible for the manifests to just add 7 names, conveniently. Just add 7 names, and when they're checked, when they're asked what their name is, it would be on the list, and they'd be fine. It was called Operation 7, and it moved from Operation 7 to Operation 11 because he saved 11 people the day that it happened. But it ended badly because they were caught. Bonhoeffer was captured. He was tortured to death. Everybody involved was tortured. Unfortunately, Bonhoeffer was very involved in the underground movement, and he knew everybody's names. Everybody. Now, let me tell you something about torture. If they want the information, they will get it. It doesn't matter how much you want to protect their names, they will get it from you. That's one of the fatal flaws of torture. You'll tell them whatever they want to hear. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. You'll tell them whatever. So it's unreliable information is the point. Information from torture is unreliable. So Bonhoeffer, I don't know if he betrayed his people or not. I don't call that a betrayal. Even if he gave people's names up, that's not a betrayal. That's torture. You can't do anything about torture. You can assume if someone's captured and the enemy is willing to torture, you can assume your name's going to come up, and it's not Bonhoeffer's fault for that, in my opinion. Anyway, Bonhoeffer was very well integrated into the system, into the underground, and he went to jail afterward. And while he was in jail, he wrote a whole bunch of letters about Jesus and philosophy, the philosophy behind what he was doing, why God would forgive him for killing this one man, which is Hitler, because he was going to save so many others, wrestling with all this other stuff. Anyway, so he's a member of the Confessing Church, 30,000 strong, give or take. And then one day he died by public hanging. As a matter of fact, sadly, Bonhoeffer died by public hanging. I think, I could be wrong here, 3 days before the camp was liberated by Americans. If it wasn't 3 days, it was within weeks. I don't remember. It's been a while since I read about it. The truly sad thing about Bonhoeffer, who this guy is on screen, the sad thing is that people lie about him constantly. The only thing that we have from Bonhoeffer is his diary entries, the sermons that he wrote while in prison, awaiting execution. That's it. That's all we've got. And Eric Metaxas wrote an entire book about him. Now, to his credit, he did have a whole bunch of, citations here, I believe. But all the citations just about link back to Bonhoeffer's sermons that he wrote in prison. That is not an unbiased source, obviously. Anyway, Eric Metaxas did nothing but lie about Bonhoeffer nonstop. And sadly, as I looked for information about this Bonhoeffer guy, I came across Encyclopedia Britannica entries and stuff that were straight up false. They claimed that Bonhoeffer was involved in something called Project Valkyrie. Project Valkyrie was this attempt on Hitler's life where the underground planned this whole thing moment by moment. This is what they were going to do. They took a briefcase and they filled it with explosives. Some guy whose job it was to sweep the room for bugs and clean it up and get it ready for a meeting, walked the briefcase in, set it down next to Hitler, and walked out. And after 10 minutes or whatever it is, it explodes, kills Hitler, we're all done. Except when Hitler sat down, a guy wanted to sit next to Hitler because he's Hitler. Who wouldn't want to sit next to Hitler, right? And he moves the briefcase to the other side, sits next to Hitler. When it explodes, that guy dies, and Hitler came out alive with like a dislocated arm, is what I think is what it was. I don't remember now. It was called Project Valkyrie. It was called Project Valkyrie, and that is all Hitler talked about for the next 12 months. Project Valkyrie. I survived my assassination attempt. I survived an assassination attempt. It's like 50 Cent talk about how many times he's been shot. Oh my God, it's insufferable. And that's what I expect to hear from Donald Trump for the next 12 years. Oh my God, dude. Just shut the f*** up. Yes, you survived an assassination attempt. You're so strong. You caught that bullet in your teeth, didn't you, Trump? Anyway, the point is that Bonhoeffer wasn't involved in Project Valkyrie at all. He was dead when Project Valkyrie happened. He was gone. There is so much propaganda surrounding this subject. It is sickening. And it was 99% created by our old buddy, Eric Metaxas. He writes this book, Bonhoeffer, after reading the dude's sermons that he wrote in jail, and bases his whole book off of like an alternate history that he wants to be true. It drives me nuts. I looked up Project Valkyrie, Bonhoeffer, on Encyclopedia Britannica because I consider Encyclopedia Britannica to be a reliable source, right? They're not. They had a whole bit about how he took part in Project Valkyrie. No, he didn't. He was dead. Look at this, Quora. What was Dietrich Bonhoeffer's exact role in the Valkyrie plot? Nothing! Nothing! His role was nothing. He was fucking dead. Let's see what the answer is. Bonhoeffer was intimately linked to various resistance groups through his family and friends. That's true. Just some examples. By the way, why didn't they just straight up first sentence say Bonhoeffer was not involved in Valkyrie in any way, shape, or form because he was fucking dead when it happened? But okay, all right, let's keep reading. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Just some examples. Karl Bonhoeffer was close to Ferdinand Sauerbach, a Berlin surgeon who influenced the diplomat Fritz Kolbe to join the resistance. Kolbe was to become the Americans' most important spy against Hitler. Paula Bonhoeffer was close to her cousin, Paul von Hase, the military commander of Berlin and strong anti-Nazi. Nowhere at any point in here, anywhere do I see he was f***ing dead when this happened. He had nothing to do with Valkyrie. Nothing. Where is that? Shouldn't that have been sentence 1? Dude was important in the confessing church, the offshoot of the evangelical German church, the one that was fighting against Hitler at the time, about 30,000 strong out of 60 million. Great. Fantastic fucking job. Yes. Good job, Bonhoeffer. You did it, bud. You died before you could take part in any kind of an assassination attempt. And I get so fucking sick of hearing people like Eric Metaxas just blatantly, flat out lie. Just lie on Bonhoeffer's behalf. Yeah, Bonhoeffer went to jail April 5th, 1943. Valkyrie happened April 9th, 1945. Bonhoeffer died April 9th, 1945. Okay, so goes to jail 1943. Valkyrie happens 1944, a year later. And then Bonhoeffer dies 1945, 3 days before his camp was liberated. He was hung. He had nothing to do with Valkyrie. Nothing. It's like these people, the confessing church people, Eric Metaxas on Bonhoeffer, he just lied. Non-stop lies from this guy. And he wrote some absolutely fascinating stuff. Like, I read the whole thing. and I took notes on all of it, and I so want to debunk this book. So let me just kind of give some highlights here about some of the stupid shit he said about this book. Chapter 1, How the Church Compares to Nazi Germany. And of course, the church is the good guy, and Nazi Germany is the bad guy in this scenario. Cultural Marxism and cultural Bolshevism and Jewish Bolshevism and how they played into the scenario. I'm sure he backs those up, right? Jesus Christ, dude. I fucking hate Apple sometimes. It drives me nuts. You know what does not drive me nuts, though? I'll tell you honestly, and I don't care who disagrees with me on this. I will deny it to the death. What does not drive me nuts is cowboys' butts. They do not. Okay, they don't. The entire book, beginning to end, again, I read the whole thing and I took notes from chapter 1 all the way through chapter 16, the final push. All of it, every last bit, it's all incorrect. It's not like full of propaganda or whatever. I mean, sure, it's that, but the most damning and disgusting part of this whole process is how incorrect it was. Look, they even mentioned Project Valkyrie in here. I saw it, July 20th, 1944. That's when Project Valkyrie happened. Let's see what they say about it. Do they include, what's his name, Bonhoeffer, in the process? If they do, then they're just, like, wrong. They're just lying. Yes, they do. They lie about it. Okay, all right, let's read about Project Valkyrie, July 20th, 1944. My birthday, and the day of the moon landing, as a matter of fact. The name Adolf is a contraction of the old German Edelwolf, meaning noble wolf. Kind of a shame he f***ed that name up for everybody, right? It's kind of a shame he f***ed up that mustache for everyone, too. I thought that mustache is metal. Now nobody can wear that shit. You know, I have a struggle, too. I would like to name my book My Struggle. Now I can't, because this f***ing took it. All right, let's keep reading. So, Noble Wolf. Hitler was aware of the etymology, and in this mystical and eerie way, he adopted the Teutonic and totemic symbol of the wolf as his own. The wild, carnivorous, and Darwinian ruthlessness of the beast. Notice he sticks Darwinian in there. He stuck it in there correctly. Darwinism was a component of World War II, but he stuck it in there strategically, I'm sure. The wild, carnivorous, and Darwinian ruthlessness of the beast appealed to him, and he'd identified with it early on. In the 1920s, he sometimes registered at hotels as Her Wolf. By the way, every word of this you should distrust. Guy lies like nobody you've ever seen. Pretty much everything in here should be considered to be a lie. He named his military headquarters during the Battle of France Wolf's Gorge. Okay, get to the point. Yes, he liked wolves. Fine. On July 19th, Stauffenberg was ordered to be at Wolfschanz the next day for a 1 o'clock meeting. He knew this was the chance for which he had been patiently waiting. The next morning, July 20th, he arose at 5, and before he left, he told his brother Berthold, "We have crossed the Rubicon." Oh, an interesting, an American reference. He drove to the airport with his adjutant, Werner von Haeften, who had spoken for hours to Bonhoeffer about killing the Führer, which is the same as Duce in Italian, El Duce, or Jefe, or Honcho. It means boss, chief. Now he was on his way to do it. With them was Stauffenberg's briefcase, containing important papers, and, swaddled in a shirt, another one of those cunning plastic bombs that had bedeviled the conspirators time and time again. Okay, I don't know what that means, whatever. But this time, as history tells us, it did not fail to explode. In the end, its explosion would kill thousands, but not as intended. They stopped at a Catholic chapel where Stauffenberg went to pray. Father Wuerl let him in, since the chapel was locked at that hour. I love how this religious nutcase talks about how the people in Hitler's inner circle were praying nonstop, especially before doing things. But Hitler was totally 100% a Darwinist, right? Yeah, he absolutely hated Christianity. 100%. They stopped at a Catholic chapel where Stauffenberg went to pray. Father Werl let him in since the chapel was locked at that hour. 10 days earlier, Stauffenberg had asked him the question that had been on his mind. Can the church grant absolution to a murderer who's taken the life of a tyrant? The answer is no, to my knowledge. No murder, period. 0. In the eyes of the Catholic Church. 10 days earlier, Stauffenberg had asked him the question that had been on his mind. Can the church grant absolution to a murderer that's taken the life of a tyrant? Father Werl said that only the Pope could grant absolution in such a case. So that means no. There is no forgiveness for that person. However, the Pope can forgive it if he deems it necessary, like breaking the vow of secrecy to a confession. You're automatically excommunicated in that case. The only person that can get you back in is the Pope, period. Oh yeah, one more thing about Nazi Germany and the churches. Catholicism was kind of split from the German evangelical church in that their main person, the main person they followed was the Pope, not Hitler. The evangelical church followed Hitler all the way. The Catholic Church followed Hitler too, all the way, except they followed the Pope first. So you'd hear them refuse to do certain things that the German whatever told them to do because the Pope said no. And Hitler did not like that challenge to his power. So eventually he tried to stamp the Catholic Church out. It took time, but he did. So I'm not sure how he linked Bonhoeffer into this at all, but that's the subject of the book. That's what it's all about, because Bonhoeffer was one of the leaders of this little itty-bitty denomination that fought Hitler. What? Out of 60 million people, only 30,000 or so went to the confessing church. Are you shitting me? And they count that as a W? Anyway, the point is that these people will shoehorn the one hero that they have from World War II into every conversation. Dude was practically a nobody in Nazi Germany, but they're desperate to make him out to be the most important person on planet Earth. It's just embarrassing. I want to do a whole review of this entire book, Bonhoeffer, like this, or Letter to the American Church, another book that this guy wrote. I want to do a whole review of them, because they're complete BS, all of it. Every last bit of it is all BS.